You know what, girls? It's been a hot minute since we heard anything juicy about that live-action Warhammer series, right? With all the silence, everyone's been whispering that the drama between Amazon and Henry Cavill spelled doom for the whole thing, leading to a quiet cancellation. But hold up, because today's report flips that script completely. We're diving into the latest update, peeking behind Amazon's business playbook, and spilling the tea on what kind of wild demands they've been throwing Cavill's way. Plus, is this show even a good idea? Let's not waste a second and get right into it. So, here's the scoop from that Park Place. Yeah, they're saying Cavill's Warhammer 40K project is definitely not dead. Despite all the rumors of behind-the-scenes clashes and threats of cancellation, the show's moving forward. Apparently, even if there's been radio silence for ages, they're still grinding behind closed doors. And yes, the creative back and forth between Amazon, Games Workshop, and our Warhammer-obsessed hero, Henry Cavill, was real. They had a deadline to sort out their differences by the end of the year, or kiss this whole universe goodbye. But word on the street? They've struck a deal. We've got Henry to thank for that. Because, girls, he fought tooth and nail for this show. Cavill's passion, oh, it's unmatched. He stood up to Amazon's bigwigs waving the Warhammer flag high. Being the true fan he is, he wanted to show the world what this universe is capable of, even converting those who've never given Warhammer a second glance. And here's the kicker. He knows that if this is done right, with epic budget movies and shows, it could be the next Star Wars. That's the level of potential we're talking about, and I don't think any Warhammer fan would argue with that. Let's be real, if this show becomes a blockbuster, it'll be all thanks to Henry Cavill's relentless push for authenticity. Now, let's not forget the elephant in the room, Amazon's track record. Remember when we thought the Hobbit movies were a letdown? Amazon came out with the Rings of Power and, well, they showed us what real disappointment looks like. Sure, the Hobbit trilogy had its flaws, but it stayed reasonably true to Tolkien's work. Amazon, on the other hand, decided they knew better than Tolkien himself and rewrote the lore completely. When fans cried foul and reviews tanked, who did Amazon blame? The fans, of course. So, are we supposed to trust them with Warhammer? It's a gamble, no doubt. But the silver lining? This time, we've got an actual fan, Henry Cavill, leading the charge. Unlike the Rings of Power, this project might just have the authenticity it needs. Fingers crossed, girls, because if anyone can keep Amazon in check, it's Henry. Not to be a hater, but have you seen what went down with Henry Cavill and Amazon? There's no way he'd let production slide if Amazon was pushing to tweak the law just to flex some identity politics. That was the whole reason drama brewed in the first place. Eamon wanted the show to follow their DEI guidelines, and Henry wasn't having it. If you don't know, girls, DEI guidelines mean Amazon's projects have to tick off this laundry list of requirements. We're talking a mandate for at least 50% female actors and characters. And yep, they've got to hold at least 50% of all dialogue. And don't even get me started on the fact that half of the characters must be people of color with equal speaking time. Oh, and at least 3 major characters have to be part of the LGBTQ+ community, and a certain number have to have disabilities. The list goes on and on. And if I tried to name every guideline, we'd be here all day. The kicker? These rules leave no breathing room for the creative freedom needed, especially for adaptations of pre-existing stories. Now, we're talking Warhammer here, one of the most lore-heavy, male-dominated franchises out there. It's almost impossible to make half the characters speaking women, given those DEI constraints. So Henry, in true Cavill fashion, initially put his foot down. But you know what, girls? He then decided to work with it and suggested including the Sisters of Silence and the Sisters of Battle in the show. Both are all-female groups that could have checked Amazon's box for female representation. But even that didn't fly. Why? Because Amazon thought the Sisters of Battle were too religious and the Sisters of Silence? Well, they don't speak, so they wouldn't help meet that precious 50% dialogue quota. Not to be a hater, but have you seen what's been brewing between Henry and Amazon? Let me spill the tea. I don't blame Henry one bit for putting his foot down when it came to those restrictive guidelines. I mean, who wants their creative freedom squashed like that? Especially when accuracy is the whole point of the show for him. And get this, Amazon's big idea to fix things was to throw female custodians into an all-male faction. Talk about rewriting lore. It's no wonder Henry and Amazon clashed and things stalled for what felt like forever. But now, word on the street is that things are finally back on track. You know what that means, right? Henry and Amazon must have reached some kind of deal. And since we all know Henry's not shy about walking away from big-name projects, remember The Witcher on Netflix? I think it's safe to say Amazon was the one who blinked first. After all, if this show flops or gets canned, Amazon's the one who's out of pocket. Big time. So, it looks like they bent the knee and gave Henry what he wanted. A shot at creating a version that stays true to the original lore. Now, before anyone asks if I'm thrilled about this show, the answer is not really. And here's why. It's not that I doubt Henry's ability to nail the characters and story. It's the budget, girls. This is Warhammer we're talking about. A franchise set in space with epic battles, insane weaponry, monstrous creatures, and other planets. The custodians alone are 10-foot tall, transhuman super soldiers. Can you even imagine the cost of making all that look right? It's got to be sky high to come anywhere close to the games. And let's be real for a second. Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, The Witcher, even any live-action Star Wars or Marvel series. Child's play compared to this. Even the Rings of Power, the most expensive show ever, has nothing on what a Warhammer series would need. Those shows rely on filming in stunning locations across the globe. But for Warhammer, you're building sets and costumes from scratch and wrestling with CGI that's 20 times more ambitious. If you don't know, now you know. Making this show look authentic is going to be a money pit. Not to be a hater, but have you ever thought about how ambitious it is to make a truly epic TV show? Like, this one would have to be the most expensive show of all time just to have a shot at being even remotely accurate. They could bring in the best writers in the world, but let's be real. Translating something as complex as the law of Warhammer from page to screen? Almost impossible. And don't get me started on Disney's live-action Star Wars shows. They're some of the priciest productions out there, but they still come off looking like fan films, mostly shot in some desert or forest, nothing special. You might not agree, and hey, that's fine. But I just can't see Warhammer working as a live-action TV show. Maybe a movie, sure. But for a series, nope, it'd be a mess. Now, you know what would actually work? An animated series. That's right, I'm talking top-tier animation. Amazon's already nailed this with Invincible. They knew live action would be a disaster, and nobody wanted it to look like a budget CW show. So they went the 2D animated route, and it was brilliant. I binged season 1, and let me tell you, there's no way it could have hit the same mark as a live action adaptation, or even better. Go 3D. Remember Star Wars? The Clone Wars? Disney made that happen. But if we're talking the gold standard, look at Arcane from Netflix. That show was pure magic. The characters were multidimensional, the dialogue was top-notch, and the story, beyond captivating. And don't even get me started on the soundtrack or the voice acting. It's all incredible. But the real star, the animation itself, it looks like a big-budget movie brought to TV. And yet they managed to pull off that level of quality for a whole series. Mind-blowing, right? If Amazon wants Warhammer to shine, animation is the path they need to take. You know what, girls? The action scenes in Arcane weren't just amazing. They were absolutely mind-blowing. And let's be real, totally impossible for any live-action show to pull off. Fast-paced, brutal choreography with those extra over-the-top moments, they nailed it. Since it's animation, they could go wild with anything, no matter how insane or massive it was, without worrying about the budget skyrocketing like it would for live-action scenes. And trust me, that freedom paid off. If you haven't done yourself a favor and watched Arcane yet, I'm telling you, drop everything and get on it. It's my favorite show of all time, hands down, and unless season 2 takes a nosedive, which, fingers crossed, it won't, that's not changing anytime soon. With season 2 just rolling out, I'm about to be fully hooked for weeks. Amazon, take notes. Go the animated route, whether it's 2D or, even better, 3D. Why? Because it's cheaper, looks incredible, and you don't have to stress about actors aging out of their roles. Plus, for a fantasy epic, you need to pull off some wild visuals, and animation is the way to go. Don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for Henry Cavill to blow us away, and if anyone can make this work, it's him. The man's a mega fan, the biggest in Hollywood, no debate there, but let's be real. An animated take would be a game changer. And hey, Henry could still show up. Imagine him as a voice actor. I'd be here for it. But what about you? Are you hyped for Amazon's version? Drop your thoughts in the comments. So girls, don't be a stranger. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for our next video. You won't want to miss it. Trust me, it's going to be a wild ride.